Welcome to My Jesus Stories with Patricia King. Patricia shares stories from her life's journey of walking with Jesus and the lessons she's learned. May these stories bless you and empower your faith. Feel free to share them with others. Now, here is Patricia King.
Hello there, and welcome to My Jesus Stories. I love telling stories about Jesus and his greatness and all the good things that he does. He's a miracle working God, and he's a God who will shift circumstances for you. But he's also a God who really cares about your soul and the position of your soul and what you're thinking. He's always like a father who wants to guide his children. And today I want to share a story with you. In fact, maybe even a couple of them that taught me a really good lesson. In Philippians 4, verse 6, it says, Be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Well, I want to share a story of when I was down in Tijuana, Mexico. I was on the mission field, and we had this team of people who were all volunteers, a lot of them young people who had come with us for a summer outreach. And we had set up camp in the midst of what was called the colonia, which was a very poor area where the Mexican people who didn't have a lot of money or goods or food or shelter would live. And sometimes they would build a house even out of pieces of cardboard that they could find. And they didn't have running water there. There was a really hard, difficult place. And we felt the Lord say, you go be with them. Don't just go live in a fancy hotel and then reach them from the fancy hotel, but go and live right in their territory. So we found a Christian ministry that had a church gathering in that area. In fact, they would meet out oftentimes just in the open air, sometimes under canopies. And then eventually we were able to build them a bit of a church building. It was really rough, but it was there. And so we've set up tent around the church building so that we could camp in the tents and gather people in the area to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. And there was so much spiritual pressure going on. I remember this one particular summer, everything that could go wrong was going wrong, and we couldn't get water, and our communication was all being disrupted, and we didn't have cell phones back in the day. So in order to get in touch with other teams that were out and about doing different ministries, we were having trouble connecting with them, getting messages across. The supplies that we needed didn't come through, and there was just it's just a couple of days where everything was going wrong. And I got so anxious. I was all wrapped up in anxiety. And it was just like, wow, this is hard. And what am I going to do? And this is going wrong and that's going wrong. And the more I got anxious, the more I lost my peace. I lost my love. I was getting short with people, and it was a horrible thing that was happening. And then the Lord spoke to me. I was crying out to the Lord. I said, Lord, you got to help me. Everything's going wrong. And the Lord said to me, there is nothing in this world worth being anxious about. And there's something about that word that went into me that brought peace. It was just like a sword went into my soul and rightly divided between the truth and the error that my soul was working with. Okay. And so in that moment, I pushed away the anxiety. I thought, it's right. Anxiety isn't going to do me any good. There is nothing good that can come out of this anxiety that I'm walking in. There is nothing in this life worth being anxious about because God is with me. He is in the midst of this battle that we are in. He is with us. He's the one who sent us here. And so I might as well be happy in the midst of what is going on here. And God, He will sort it out. And I thought, why did I allow my peace to be lost? And I certainly did, because anxiety, you cannot have anxiety and peace at the same time. And I remembered Philippians 4, the same chapter, and verse 4, just a couple of verses before verse 6, where it says, "Be anxious for nothing." It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always." So not only are we told not to be anxious, we are actually taught how we can avoid anxiety. And it's by rejoicing in the Lord always looking to the goodness of the Lord. So I started to rejoice in him, and I started to thank him for every good thing that he had given us, for all the good things that we had experienced in him, even being on that outreach, for all his faithfulness, for all his answered prayer, for all of his goodness. And all of a sudden, all the anxiety left. And of course, everything worked out. Of course it did. God will always allow everything to come to a good end if we keep our mind on him. It says God will keep us in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. Well, if I can fast forward a few decades later, I was in another situation. And of course, I learned to trust God more and rejoice in him more and learn to overcome way bigger obstacles than I did back then. And I just want to encourage you that the obstacles that you are overcoming today that seem really big to you, 10 years from now, if you continue to walk with God and be faithful to him, the obstacles you're dealing with today won't look like anything 10 years from now. Just remember that, is that they're small in the sight of God. There's nothing too difficult for him. So decades later, I was in another situation. And this one was a very difficult one because it was regarding my husband's health. He had gone in for brain surgery for a need that he had with his Parkinson's as we were fighting it. And he needed bilateral brain surgery. And there were some complications. Even though we had prayed that things would go well, the surgery would go well, there were some complications. And when I saw that happen, after we had prayed and stood on the word that everything was going to go well, I saw these complications come and I lost my peace. And they were severe complications. And the doctors had given us a bad report, and I went home in tremendous anxiety. I woke up in the morning, phoned the hospital, and the head nurse gave me a very bad report, and it didn't have any hope with it. And I just caved in the midst of these bad reports, and the anxiety level was so high that I couldn't even think of any good outcome. All I was meditating on was all the negativity. And it was at that point that my assistant called me to see how I was doing. And I was telling her all the negative report that I'd received. And she said to me these words. She said, "There is no faith in worry." So there I am again, being delivered the same word from the Lord. Back in the 1980s down in Mexico, it was be anxious for nothing. There's nothing in this world worth being anxious about. And now, decades later, there I was in 2015 being faced with a dilemma that was making me anxious. And the word of the Lord came, "There's no faith in worry." And immediately my spirit was released and I was able to reposition myself again, looking at the Lord. You see, he is with you in the midst of your situation. He doesn't sometimes deliver you from the situation. He delivers you in the midst of it. And he wants you to find your peace in the midst of it. In Zephaniah 3:17, it says, "The Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty." He is mighty. He will save. He'll rejoice over thee with singing. In the midst of dark times, in the midst of trying situations, in the midst of difficulties, he will deliver you. That's what he did with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In the midst of the fiery furnace, he hadn't delivered them out of it. He delivered them in it. He was there in the midst of them. They weren't anxious because they knew that God would work it out. And the same with Daniel. In the midst of being thrown into the lion's den, he knew that God would work it out. He wasn't anxious. He said, "Well, I'm not going to turn away from worshiping my God. I'm not going to worship any false idols. You tell me I'm going to go into the lion's den, but my God will be with me." And his God was with him. And God silenced the rage of the lions and settled the appetite of the lions. And he was with Daniel in the lion's den. And he'll be with you in any circumstance. He will bring you out. There is nothing in this world, there's nothing in life worth being anxious about. Nothing at all. You say, yes, but there's wars and rumors of wars and natural disasters and plagues and everything going on. There is nothing that we need to be anxious about because our God is holding us in the palm of his hand. And if he's able to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, he's able to carry you through. So I learned a big lesson through these situations I found myself in. And that was not to be anxious, but to trust him in every circumstance in life, because he's holding us in the palm of his hand. No matter what goes on around us, no matter what we face, God is with us and God is for us. He is mighty, and he is mighty in the midst of whatever you are facing right now. This is my story. This is my song. This is the truth that I hold to now because of the goodness of the Lord. I want to thank you for joining me as I shared this Jesus story with you. I have others to share with you as well. And you might want to just share this with your friends, or be part of these podcasts and sign up as a subscriber to them so that you can get alerted whenever another one comes up. Because I want to fill you with the testimony of the Lord. The testimony of the Lord is so powerful that when you share a testimony of what God has done, it gives them permission to do it again. It's like prophesying, and it builds faith in you. And that's my heart, is to build you up. I would love to build relationship with you. If you would be interested in getting to know more about our ministry, go to patriciaking.com. If you would like to partner with us, we invite you to do so and help us get this word of hope out, that we can continue to tell the world about the greatness of Jesus. And when you sow into good ground, you're always going to be blessed back in return. So it would be my heart to see you connected to us as a ministry so that we can continue to feed you and bless you. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. You can find more information about Patricia King Ministries on patriciaking.com. Thank you also to those of you who generously sow financially into the ministry to enable us to reach the nations with the gospel.